Good. So now we can begin.
Okay,
So you could, yeah, if you could begin at the beginning.
I'll begin at the beginning because there is a series of things that have happened over my lifetime. I'm 77 years old,
Mhm.
and I was actually somewhat spiritual as a child. My mother was very relaxed about letting me explore different churches and different
Mhm.
modes. And I went to the Unity Church in the beginning, which was a very open minded, loving Christian church that was very pleasant.
Mhm.
But that was my only real somewhat spiritual experience as a child. And um, then in my 20s, I had an aunt who suddenly discovered Transcendental Meditation.
Mhm.
And because she knew I came from a family of a lot of turmoil, she thought it would be nice for my mother and me to experience this.
Oh,
So I went with my mother and my stepfather to this initiation and experienced profound peace during the initiation.
great.
And that was the first time.
Hmm.
Um, and what I'll say ahead of time is every time I've had these experiences, they've all been in different contexts and they've all been unprepared for, no
Mhm.
practice, no, and definitely no expectation. Every time there's been no expectation. Um, and so I experienced profound peace for a period of time after that. I remember my mother and stepfather were arguing, and I said to them, how can you argue now? Because it just seemed like completely out of context with where I was.
Mhm.
Um, the other consistent element with all of these different experiences is that I never felt compelled to be a devotee to anything. So I didn't become a devotee of the Maharishi when that happened. It didn't even occur to me. I grew up in kind of a bohemian environment where
Hmm.
you didn't really revere authoritarian
Yes, which
people.
is,
So
yeah.
I never had that inclination at all to think, okay, I'm going to become a TM person and throw myself into this. I just thought, oh, this is nice. And I
Hmm.
would practice my mantra. I still do when my mind is um, agitated and I can't quite settle. I still use my mantra. Um, and then I went on with my life.
Hmm.
So I had a couple of children. I had one bad marriage, one very good marriage. Married a lovely, kind man. Um, but we both were from very working class backgrounds, and we had to work really hard to maintain our lifestyle. And we live in a nice area of California, and we wanted to keep our home. So I found a profession that I really was drawn to, and that was legal research,
Hmm.
and which I loved. And I think part of my intuitive side really worked that because a judge could give me a, some sort of legal question, and in 15 or 20 minutes, I could find the answer. Just intuitive. It was all intuitive. I wasn't good at the practical stuff at all, but the legal
Oh,
research I really got into. And so that was years and years of making pretty good money, surviving well, raising children, and very much in the head, rational, judgmental,
hmm.
that type of mode of the mind.
Hmm.
Um, and to a large extent, I really enjoyed that. It was
Hmm.
an escape of sorts. But periodically through my 30s and maybe into my 40s, I would have sudden um, experiences of what what we used to call awakening. Recently, I'm calling it more no mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one was when a cousin of mine talked me into going to see the Dalai Lama. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
anything about the Dalai Lama, had no interest, or didn't really even want to go. But I went because he wanted me to go with him. We sat in a huge auditorium, the Masonic Auditorium in San Francisco. And I was sitting there. It wasn't, he didn't speak, it was some sort of ceremony. He was way up on the stage, and I was very bored. Um, and then my body started rocking back and forth quite dramatically. Just, and I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea what that was about. I still don't know what it means. But my body was just rocking and rocking and rocking. And then in those days, you could go right up to the Dalai Lama and he gives you a little, I've actually got one now, a little bracelet with
Mm-hmm.
string, and blesses you. So I left that day. Again, no expectation, no knowledge at all about Tibetan Buddhism, no knowledge at all about awakening. And for 3 months, I was in a state of profound peace. And
Mm-hmm.
and the way I describe that is in the world, but not of the world. Everything was the same. My children would fight. I'd lose my keys. There were problems, but I was always in a state of peace. And it wasn't a state of, in any way, um, spaciness, had nothing to do with any artificial element. And I've always felt that no matter what other realms people may go to in their spiritual seeking, this profound peace was enough for me. I didn't need anything more. I didn't need to keep seeking, um, because when you're in this profound peace, everything is fine, basically. And you can go through terrible trauma and things will still happen, but you're experiencing it in this profound peace. So that was the most sustaining period of time that happened to me. Um, and then after about 3 months, it went away. And I don't even think at that point I wasn't studying non-duality or any of those things. So I didn't even know what had happened. But I knew that I was in this different place. And I also knew that there was a different way of being in the world than most people were experiencing. And that has stayed with me through all my years of seeking.
Good.
Um, so then a couple of times that happened again. Once when I took a self hypnosis class, it happened, but it only lasted about a day or two. And then another more profound time, I went to Australia and I was up in the Aboriginal lands. And again, had no idea about anything Aboriginal, had no expectation of having any kind of experience, but managed to get away from my group for a period of time. And when I was by myself, it was like my heart opened up. I felt at one with everything around me, the nature, the rocks. I still have a rock that I brought back. I had this smile on my face that everybody noticed because I'm not exactly a smiley kind of person. And that lasted for a period of time, and that was very profound. So um, it's it's heartening and disheartening because there's no rhyme or reason to it. It just happens to me. And it never has happened in the same way in the same place.
No.
So as I got older, I studied quite happily, actually, it turned out. I took a course with Jack Cornfield and Tara Brach about being a mindfulness teacher. This was after I retired. I wanted to go back to that area of my life, and I'd had a lot too much of the legal
Mm.
my legal stuff in the head, and I knew I need to do something else. So I took a 2-year course with them, and learning mindfulness was tremendously beneficial for me because I could watch my mind and how it caused me suffering and how it caused other people suffering in my life.
Mm.
And I've actually started a local group where women, older women, have come to me and said, I want to learn what you know. And it's been very successful. It's very small, but it's been
Good.
very successful. Um, and I'm always an advocate of mindfulness, no matter what heightened experiences I may have. The practical mindfulness made a tremendous difference in my life because my relationships all changed once I became mindful,
Mm.
with my children and my everybody.
Mm.
So I've also had a lot of medical problems come up as I got older. So I got to, and there are teachers in the Bay Area that I resonate with, and so I do go out on retreat in the Bay Area, um, and I find, sounding without coming from a place of hubris, I want to say I immediately know when I'm with a teacher whether they've ever actually known their true nature.
Mm.
I can just, like, I've been to, and I know it's different for other people, but
Mm.
I saw Gangaji, I saw Amma, I saw different people, different teachers at Spirit Rock, and they can be wonderful teachers and had great experiences. But
Mm.
I know that there's not that knowing of awakening in them. I just know, except for Ajashanti was the only one. I did have an experience with Ajashanti when I was sitting with him also in a great big group, not expecting anything. And I just dropped, everything just dropped away.
Mm.
Um, but I got scared. My ego or something got scared, and I brought myself back. Um, so, I got kind of, part of me thinks, well, it's wonderful those things happen, but they're not consistent, and I have no control over when they happen. And probably now that I'm older, it's not going to, I always think it's not going to happen again. And then about a year and a half ago, I was on retreat. This has never happened on retreat before. And I was in the cafeteria. It was a silent retreat. And I was thinking, I've always been quite shy. Um, I was walking across the cafeteria, and wondering if people were looking at me or something like that, being self-conscious. And I thought, God, I'm so self-conscious. And as I said that, I slipped in what I, for the first time, I described as no mind,
Mm.
which maybe I'd heard before, but I hadn't studied or looked into or anything, because that really described it the best, where thoughts and judgments and descriptions and everything just don't come up anymore. So I stayed there for a while after the retreat, and then again it falls away.
Mm.
So I, you know, I don't know what to do now. I'm like, my body is failing. I'm getting older. I'm thinking, am I going to die and never quite get this to be any kind of lasting? Because it's all, definitely, when you talk, I know everything. I know everything you say is true. I say, oh yeah, I know that. I know that. I don't know that. Um, but it's not integrated somehow, I guess is the word. And then that gets kind of disheartening.
Yes. Well, you're really fortunate because the profound experiences you've had. Um, are you familiar with the kosher, Susan? The idea
I
of the
only
kosher.
through listening to you. I'm not really well versed in them.
Right. Well, we'll just have a little look because the experiences you're having there to do with switching between the koshers. So
Oh,
um, we all begin and remain as attributeless awareness, which is just an open space. It's like an open space within which everything is appearing. So it's formlessness, and then all the forms appear within that space. And that's what you are. You're the pure potentiality of attributeless awareness, attributeless being. And then we have these filters, which are called the koshas, and they allow different experiences. So the first kosher to emerge is Anandamaya kosher, which is the body of bliss. Have you had any experiences of bliss, Susan?
well, how would you describe that?
Well,
I've had
bliss,
that. I've had the body dissolve. I remember you talking about that. And many
yes.
times when I've meditated, I just can feel my body dissolve. It's not dramatic. It just sort
No,
of disappears. I've
yes,
had
that's
that.
great. That's great. Well, bliss is when there's a heightened sense of, well, you could say euphoria, but it's just it's a self-contained it is experiential, so it's like a self-contained heightened experience, but it isn't in relation to anything. So um yeah, you've probably had aspects of it, but maybe
Yes.
not totally clear experience.
Probably in Australia, that was more of a bliss state than,
Yes,
yes,
that was a unity experience to some degree as well, because there was just that sense of oneness with everything.
yes.
So that's really good. So the next kosher is called the body of wisdom, which is also effortless being. So what you've been experiencing periodically through your life is effortless being, and although although there's no formula to have that experience. It's arisen for many different reasons, but the one consistent aspect is that it's always arisen effortlessly. It hasn't arisen through intention or practice or anything. It just sort of comes from nowhere.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that effortless being is your true nature. It's what you've always been. It's just that in the dualistic realm, in the human realm, we've been programmed into individuality. And so individuality is something which we all have, that program is installed from an early age. And so really it seems as though if we have deep spiritual experiences as you have, that we're moving into that and then we lose it again. But actually, it's more that your true infinite nature is always present and it's effortless. It's just that the mind, the emotions, and the physical realm, they can be turned off when we switch back into the more subtle realm of effortless being or the body of wisdom. So that's really what's been happening. And what I'd like to do is just to go through one or two little exercises with you, because it is possible to actually remain as effortless being at will. But it's just that for most of us, the mind has been programmed to be constantly active. And so for various reasons, it can suddenly stop. For you, it's obviously very easily accessible. And so let's just have a look at one or two aspects to see how that is always available, because it's really that effortlessness is what you've always remained as. So that effortless open space of awareness, as you say, it's, you can describe it as no mind because it's when the mind ceases really.
Hmm.
And it's but but it's also impersonal. So it's effortless, impersonal being. The um, the main thing to know is that there's never anything to be afraid of in terms of resting as effortless, impersonal being, because it's what you are already. It's just that superimposed on effortless being is the personal mode. And the personal mode is part of a sort of energy game in the dualistic realm. And it's the dualistic realm which doesn't want you to cancel your subscription to the energy game you're involved in. So, so when there's a deep experience and potential to align with effortless being permanently, or to, for it to always be accessible at will, the the dualistic realm tries to invite you into fear, to make it seem as though you're losing something, you're losing individuality. But really, the individual mode is an option. It's an optional mode of experience. But it's just that most spiritual practices, they operate on the basis of inversion. So the starting point for lots of religions and spiritual practices and therapies is the personal mode. So they try to lead us to believe that if we can eradicate the mind, the emotions, and go into more subtle states, then we can eventually return to our true nature. But the opposite is actually true, which is that everyone, without exception, is remaining as the infinite, impersonal, timeless, effortless being always. It's just that there's a little program which is superimposed on that, which is individuality. And we've been distracted by that because there's activity there, forms, experiences, emotions.
Could I
So,
interrupt for just a second? I wanted to tell you that I have had always, first of all, a very strong pain body,
mhm.
like Eric totally told about. And,
Yeah,
I can have, I'm much better now, but I've had very intense expressions of anger and
yes,
sometimes depression, and also a kind of unknowing or undecipherable element in my being that's very resistant to healing or peace or what. I can feel the resistance. So I just wanted to
yes,
tell you that I've got a
that's
strong.
good. Yes,
Okay. Okay.
that's good. Well, actually, um, anger is probably the least um, powerful in some ways in terms of distracting us, because it tends to be that the energy just flows through. Other
Mhm.
ones like anxiety or depression tend to be more they're sort of more pervasive because energetically they're quite neutral. But what I'd like to do is just to go through a little exercise with you, just to see that effortless being is present, and it's actually the personal mode, which is optional. So let's just take this moment. That's quite a good place to begin. And so could you just let me know if there are any thoughts arising at the moment?
Um, there's a certain heightened energy that's somewhat anxiety, but not serious fear or anything. Um,
Okay,
I feel good that I'm completely relaxed with you, not anxious at all.
good.
Um, oh, there's a part that it's so hot. It's it happens that I know I don't have to try to figure out what you're saying or try to
Mhm.
figure out if it's true what you're saying. I know that it is because I've experienced it. And
Yes.
um, but there's a hesitation, I guess I'd call it, that maybe doesn't quite think it would work for me, something
Yes.
like that. But
Well, the hesitation is actually an invitation which is coming from the dualistic realm to try to keep you engaged in the personal realm. But quite an easy way to see that the personal realm is optional rather than effortless being is to just change the language slightly. So if we let's take the examples of a slight sense of anxiety. So the way we've been programmed to maintain the personal realm is through language. So we tend to use words like I, me, or mine in the sentences that we're speaking and the thoughts we're having. And um, and that maintains the personal mode because, as you know already, effortless impersonal being is already fully present. It's right here and now. And it's just that the personal mode is optional. And it's only activated really through the use of language or personalized thoughts. So if we take the example of anxiety, anxiety is normally personalized. So people would say, "Oh, I feel anxious." Have this sense of anxiety about something. It goes back to my childhood, and sometimes there's a little story around it. But if we just look at the sort of energetic component, we just see that what we call anxiety has a sort of vibrational frequency, which we're familiar with, and we can change the language. So rather than personalizing it to say I feel anxious, we can just notice that there is effortless impersonal awareness of anxiety, of a little frequency called anxiety. So what's knowing the anxiety in reality isn't Susan, it's effortless impersonal being, which is what you've always remained as.
So say that one more time, would you, just so it sinks in,
So certainly. So firstly, just effortlessly notice that there's a frequency which is called anxiety.
which I have a lot. Yeah.
Okay, and that frequency is familiar,
Yes.
and it's one of the devices that dualistic realm uses to draw you into personalization.
Okay.
So so the way we've been conditioned is to personalize it. So we're told that we're anxious. Oh, I have a feeling of anxiety. I'm an anxious kind of person.
Yeah.
Those sentences all contain words like I, me, or mine. And it's when we're act when we it's only when we're actually using those words that we're creating the personal mode, which is superimposed on impersonal beings, because it's impersonal being which is knowing the anxiety. There is, so firstly, just effortlessly notice there's a frequency which has been called anxiety, and then just notice that there is effortless impersonal awareness of the anxiety. It isn't Susan knowing it, it's effortless impersonal awareness, aware of a frequency which has been called anxiety.
Yeah, that separates it somewhat from my body.
Exactly. And even using the word my in relation to the body creates a sense of personalization.
Okay.
So in terms of thoughts, in terms of emotions, and in terms of the body, we can switch to using impersonal language rather than personalizing it because the mode of Susan is only switched on by the use of those words because all along you're actually remaining as impersonal, effortless being. And then there's the option to activate the personal mode, and that is activated by those words, I, me, and mine.
Is it that simple? That sounds so simple.
It is. It's utterly simple. It's
I mean,
it's
if it were that simple, it'd be wonderful.
well, it's actually moment to moment because you're in this moment. You are resting as effortless impersonal being. That's all you can ever be. You can't ever be Susan. You can't ever really become the person. You can only remain as this open space of infinite being and awareness, which you've always been. But there is the option to activate the personal mode. It's just that we've been conditioned to activate it without realizing that it's optional and realizing that we actually can decide whether we activate it or not. The way we've been conditioned from an early age, from when your parents started calling you Susan, because you, prior to the age of 2, and every moment since, and there is really only the one moment, but there has just been effortless impersonal awareness of forms appearing. And so prior to the age of 2, there would be effortless impersonal awareness of the body mind of a little girl sat in a chair or on the carpet or on the sofa, and there would be forms appearing. So there could be the smell of food, or there could be um, a feeling of hunger, or the sound of family members, or the sound of wind in the trees, or rain falling. And all those forms were being registered in effortless impersonal awareness. It was never Susan knowing anything. It's just that through repetition, your family members invited you into the personal mode as they had been invited by their family and friends. And then you habitually adopt that mode. And around the age of 2, we tend to lose sight that we have the option to remain as the infinite, effortless, timeless field of being and awareness, thinking that we are a human being locked in time and space. But it never took place because you remained as the impersonal, effortless, timeless being. And really, the personal mode is only ever activated and has only ever been activated when there's personalization of the forms appearing. So all the forms are actually arising equally and effortlessly. So there could be thoughts arising, which are forms, emotions, which are forms. There's awareness of the body, which is a form, awareness of the furniture, of the light coming through the window, the sound of cars going by, or the sound of birds flying by. All those forms are known by the infinite, effortless, timeless being you've always remained as. And then there's the option to adopt the mode of Susan if you wish to, but it's optional whether you decide to experience as the infinite field of timeless, indestructible awareness, or whether you adopt the mode of Susan. It's just that you're playing a little game in the dualistic realm because everything in the human realm of experience is designed to get you to adopt the personal mode. The invitations you receive, the programming you've received from family, friends, education, the media, everything in this world. If you read a newspaper, read a book, turn on the TV, everything is encouraging you to adopt the personal mode of experience when really it's an option.
So, other than not using the personal pronouns, how do you? I mean, I get triggered again, not nearly as much as I used to, but certain things still trigger me into feeling competitive or
Hmm.
angry or anxious. How do
Yes.
you decline those invitations? How do you decline them?
Well, really, it's firstly discovering that in the human realm of experience, there are two kinds of intelligence which the human mind is linked to. So there's the intelligence of the infinite being, which is a combination of infinite love with infinite intelligence. So when you were in Australia, um, there was the arising of a combination of infinite intelligence with infinite love, a feeling of unity. So you were experiencing as a field of awareness within which everything, the rocks, the sunshine, the physical body, the thoughts, the emotions, they were all arising within this field. And there was the component of love because that experience was arising in the body of wisdom, which it remains aligned with your infinite nature. The the dualistic consciousness or the dualistic realm of experience is a combination of the mental, which is the astral, the emotional, which is the etheric, and the physical realms. And they to experience those, we there's the element of personalization and duality. And the intelligence which is regulating the dualistic realms is a different kind of intelligence. It's an intelligence without love. And
I'm sorry, with what? It's
it's intelligence without love. So um, if we take the structures in this world, it tends to be things like death, sickness, accidents, old age, suffering, all of those components. And they're specific really to the dualistic realm. And so the human mind is wired to both of those systems. So if you take the invitations into various forms of disturbance, those invitations are coming from the dualistic realm, what I call the dualistic central server. So the dualistic intelligence knows everything about you. It has a file on Susan, so it knows. Sorry, my dog's just come into the room. Come here. Sorry. Um, so so the so the invitations we receive from the dualistic realm, they they're designed to put us into personalization. So there are the most intense ones and the ones which tend to be um, they tend to be the most disturbing. So if we take the predominant one, so for you it could be anger and anxiety, from what you say.
I think anxiety is the most. And I had a bad experience in a car as a child, and driving in a car can really uh, increase that anxiety. And
Hmm.
it's I've tried many things to uh, heal it, and nothing works. That comes up.
Yes. Well, the dualistic realm is like an energy game. And have you seen the film The Matrix?
The witch?
There's a film called The Matrix. Have you seen that
Yes,
film?
yes.
Well, the dualistic realm is in many ways like that film, in that all the human beings are um, we're like batteries. So we have this energetic potential because we're the infinite being, and there is this energetic potential. The solution to the end of suffering is in understanding how the dualistic realm works, and the most of the spiritual approaches and religions don't really address this. The only one, well, there are two that do. The one is Hinduism in terms of the way it describes the yugas, and the second one is Gnosticism, because in Gnosticism they say that a divine creation is a combination of infinite love with infinite intelligence, but the dualistic realm emerged when Sophia, who is the principle of intelligence, and Sophia normally combines with infinite love to create a divine creation. But she wanted to create something of her own, and she created the dualistic realm, and she appointed what is called the demiurge as the administrator of the dualistic realm. So the demiurge is like it's really like a computer program because it's very intelligent, but it isn't compassionate. So and also because the dualistic realm isn't in alignment with God or the infinite being, the way it's sustained is through utilizing the energy of the beings who are here and don't really understand what the game is. So it's very much like the Matrix, really, the so that each person has energetic potential, but it's only because it's a realm without love, that potential can only be realized um, by activating the lower frequency emotions. So it can't be utilized by activating love or compassion or kindness or any of those. It can only be activated by activating things like depression, anger, fear, anxiety, jealousy, grief, those kind of emotions. But really, the understanding of how to remain as effortless being is in understanding how the dualistic realm works, because everyone remains as the infinite being, so everyone remains as the infinite impersonal being. But personalization is the means by which we're put into various states of duality. So things like, well, there's a saying, fear is born of duality. There can only be fear when there is duality. And so the predominant invitations are the ones which are putting us into personalization. So um, if we take the conditioned version of the experience you had as a child was being in the car, and then because you'd been conditioned into the personal mode, when you had that experience, you experienced it in the personal mode. So it activated anxiety because it was to do with duality, because everything in the everything in the dualistic mode is an inversion. So rather than when you go to school, they say, well, actually, you're the infinite, impersonal, timeless being. They're saying, you're Susan English. We're going to call the register. You need to answer to your name. There's the coat hook that you put your coat on, and these are your books which you write your name on. And everything is to do with reinforcing personalization. And so by the time you had the experience in the car, the personal mode had already been installed sufficiently so that it activated that sense of danger and fear. And because that frequency was one which you were triggered by, the dualistic realm has continued to deliver invitations into anxiety since then, because it knows that it's an effective way to compromise your energy. So it's another way of describing the pain body, really, because pain body experiences really the pain body is when we're triggered into personalization. So whenever we're triggered by the fear, anxiety, those experiences can only arise when we've already consented to personalization.
So
And as it is,
how do we not consent to personalization? I mean,
well, really by seeing that there's a distinction between impersonal being and the personal mode. So you can consciously function from impersonal, effortless being. And so if we took the example a moment ago of the slight sense of anxiety which is arising in this moment.
right.
Uh, is it still there or has it subsided?
It subsided.
Good.
Yeah.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
So that's a sign that the investment in the personal mode has been withdrawn. So that's good. So So the way we, so the way we experience from effortless being rather than the personal mode is by seeing that actually you're always remaining as the infinite, impersonal, timeless being. That's all that is ever knowing anything really. It isn't Susan. It isn't. There's nothing personal about knowing because everything is being registered in the infinite, effortless, impersonal field of awareness. It's just that we've been conditioned to accept and adopt the personal mode without realizing that that's what we've been programmed to do. So, firstly, when, you know, well, say between the age of 0 and 2, um, you were just resting as the infinite, effortless field of timeless awareness. And so, whatever was arising, so there could be awareness of the sound of your mum making some food in the kitchen, or there could be the sound of the TV, or there could be the sound of music on the radio, or of wind in the trees. So
Oh,
until the
I
person,
see. So are you saying a way to shift away from the anxiety is to become aware of, um, as you would as a pre-2-year-old, to become, is that
Well,
what you're
it's to,
saying?
it's to realize that what was present prior to the age of 2, when the personal mode was adopted, is that effortless impersonal being, which was present then, is also present now, and it's actually been present all along. It's just that you've been programmed into accepting the option of personalization.
I guess I'm still wondering if there's some sort of action that you do. If there, so say I get into a car and I feel very anxious, um, is there's, I can know that, I am my impersonal being, but, and I can see that anxiety as an energy of non-duality, um, of duality. Um, but what else? But the,
So yes, so in the early stages,
yeah,
you can use little reminders because you already know that you're the infinite, impersonal, timeless being,
yes,
that Susan is a mode of experience, but it isn't what you truly are. So you
yes,
already know.
yes.
So if you take it takes the experience of anxiety around traveling in cars, the dualistic realm has utilized that option to try to keep you preoccupied and to get you to invest energetically. And so it has on file that anger and anxiety are two of the main aspects in which you're going to be investing energetically. Because what you notice about those experiences, and then the third one to a lesser degree is depression, but they're ones which are on file. So you know that the invitations you're going to be received are to do with the ones that you've previously accepted. Because the way it works is that I use the analogy of being invited to a party. So there are parties that we can be invited to. So it's like an anxiety party. You've attended that party many times before, and the dualistic realm knows that if it sends you an invitation, you're likely to show up at that party. And it's similar to the pain body, the way Eckhart describes it.
Mhm.
But when you know, firstly, that you don't need to show up to have that experience of anxiety, um, then you realize that um, you can decline the invitation. And one of the main benefits in declining the invitation is that you know that energetically, it's always only your own energy which is fueling the experience. So the reason we feel drained after an experience of anxiety or fear or depression is because we've invested our energy in that. We've adopted the personal mode and then we've invested in it as though it's true. And then at the end of that episode, um, then we feel depleted because it's our energy which has fueled it. But when you discover that it's actually optional, because let's take the example of anxiety to do with motor vehicles. Um, Firstly, it's knowing that it's an invitation, that the dualistic realm is trying to get you to invest your energy in the dualistic realm by putting you into a state of anxiety. After a while, we just have this feeling, well, no, I'm not going to play that game. It isn't something I wish to experience. It's energetically depleting. I'm not going to go there.
So
So
it's
you
like
actually,
it's like a conscious decision you make.
yes, it is. It
Okay.
is.
Okay.
So it's seeing that it's detrimental to your welfare to go there. And when you know that it's optional, you just stop doing it to yourself.
Is it that easy just to say I'm not going to do this?
Well, the way it works, it's a bit like invitations to parties or events, which is that say you have say you have a friend that you don't particularly like their company, but they think you're wonderful. So they always invite you to their parties. And you, out of politeness, you show up, but you always regret going. But at the point where you become quite firm and you don't, you're not prepared to put yourself through that experience, they've sent you a very lavish invitation, and that's put you into a feeling of compromise, which is why you go. But you you actually decline the invitation. You write to them and you say, "Well, it's very kind of you to invite me, but I'm not able to attend on this occasion." So you decline it the first time. The second time you decline it, they might just send you an email then. They might just say, "Oh, would you like to come to my party?" And then if you decline it again, you might get a text message the third year, and then they stop afterwards because they get the message. And it's the same with investing in the low frequency emotions. If you keep accepting the invitations, you keep getting the invitations, because you're investing the energy. It's a bit like having a standing order at the bank, um, or you're subscribing to um, some kind of club or something. But when you cancel the subscription, then it stops showing up. And the best way to put an end to things like anxiety and fear and anger and depression is to realize that they're optional and to decline the invitation. And the way it's quite easy to experience in that way, because what you begin to notice is it isn't necessary to process these things or to analyze them. It's just that you know that anything which is coming from your infinite nature has a feeling of expansion, but anything coming from the dualistic realm has a feeling of contraction. So experiences like anxiety and fear, they all have a very strong feeling of contraction. But things like love, compassion, unity, the experience you had in Australia, the ones you've described, um, they all have a feeling of expansion. So when you see, it's actually quite easy to navigate, because you're the infinite, effortless, timeless, omnipotent, indestructible being. You can live and function from there, or you can adopt the personalized mode, which is the one you were programmed into from birth, which is adopting the mode of Susan. And if you could write the character of Susan. Susan experiences anxiety. She sometimes gets angry. She has a powerful mind as well. She has powerful intuition. The intuition actually is coming from your infinite nature. That the reason you have that capability is because your infinite nature is actually very strong and it's always been running. It's just that the personal mode, um, the religions and therapies don't really explain the distinction between unity and duality, because most of them are in service to the dualistic realm. Because they usually begin with personalization. It's the idea that you are a person called Susan and that you need to either worship or practice, or you need to do different things. And then eventually you might find your way back to your infinite nature after many lifetimes and all kinds of conditions. But the truth is, all along, you are the infinite being. You've not been anything else. All you're doing is you're playing a little game of hide and seek. And you've set it up as a bit of a challenge. And you said, well, I'll pop down there onto planet Earth. Everything there is going to convince me that I'm Susan, when actually you never have been.
I just realized that one of the assumptions I've been functioning under for some reason is, even though I know this infinite being quite well and I don't have any reservations or um, questions about it. I somehow haven't believed it's more powerful than the dualistic invitations.
Well,
So,
that's because dualistic, everything about the dualistic realm is reinforcing the sense that it has power over you, it has authority over you, and you're subject to it. But
yeah,
actually, it's an inversion. So the opposite is true, which is
yeah,
you're the infinite, omnipotent being, and the dualistic realm is optional. And the dualistic realm only has power and energy if you invest your energy in it. Without it, it doesn't have any.
right. I haven't really acknowledged or integrated that the profound, peaceful side of me is the powerful side, and is the one that can be in control. And um, yeah, I haven't, even though I've experienced it profoundly, I've allowed the dualistic energies to have, or I've allowed that they have more power than my peaceful
Yes,
side,
yes.
which
Well,
doesn't make
it,
sense, but I that's what I've done.
well, it's because the dualistic realm, because we've consented to this realm to some degree, we we're having the full-on experience, and the full-on experience is that wherever you look, whether it's in the education system, the legal system, the financial system, the media, the religions, the therapy, they're all actually serving the dualistic realm.
Yeah,
And when you know that, you can begin to make sense of what's going on because as you came on and you were describing things, you're actually describing it from the point of view of Susan. So you were saying, well, I had these experiences when I was a little girl, I had these experiences and then, I learned to meditate and I had these experiences. And then I've had these, these deep experiences, profound spiritual experiences intermittently with no control over them. But really, to describe it more accurately, you've remained as the infinite timeless being throughout. And the personal mode was inflicted on you from an early age because whenever somebody calls you Susan and they're describing you, they're describing the body and they're saying, "Oh, this is our little girl. She has these qualities." They're reinforcing the personalization, and then you tend to adopt that. But really, you've remained the way we could describe it is you could say, well, actually, I've remained as the infinite timeless being all along, but because the dualistic realm is intent on getting me to invest energetically in the dualistic realm, there have been periods where the personal mode has predominated, but I've also been fortunate to have experiences where infinite impersonal effortless awareness without any aspect of the personal mode or the mental realm being active. I've been blessed to have those experiences, um, and um, and now actually I realize that the dualistic realm is optional, and I can begin to make infinite impersonal effortless awareness predominate, and I can regulate the degree of emotional investment and mental investment and physical investment in the dualistic realm, and I'll begin to experience it on my terms rather than feeling that it's running the show.
yeah, yeah. I've never allowed it to have its power, actually. Um, I can see that now. Yeah, I was just seeing it as something that happened to me, not something that was actually always there.
Mm,
Even though when you say that, of course, I know it's true.
mm,
Um, and part of that is the way I was raised. I was very beaten down
mm.
by Italian matriarchy as a child. So I certainly was never encouraged to have my own power. Uh,
Well, that's quite. If you watch, some of the conversations on my YouTube channel, lots of people I have conversations with have that kind of experience because if there's the ability to align with or remain as impersonal, effortless being, to remain as, one's true nature, then beings with that capability quite often find themselves being born into situations where invitations into personalization are more extreme than usual. So it can quite often be that the dualistic realm knows your capability, so it only lets you in because it says, well, let's match Susan with this family experience, which is going to give her really heavy invitations into personalization, lack of self-worth, and an overlooking of the sovereignty of her infinite nature, which is always present. So even though you've known it all along. It's just that all the conditioning has bombarded you with invitations to try to put you into that place. And you've had the same experience as I have, which is being born into a working class family, which again diminishes that sense of sovereignty and
Mm,
power.
mm. And I've
But when,
been, sometimes I wonder, since I have this such a strong awakening side, for lack of better words, why has my life been so hard on certain levels? Some gifts, like my husband, I've been given, but I've also had a lot of physical challenges and family challenges, and um, the image of domineering women, even now, comes up, even though I try to be quiet and not competitive. I'll find the grandmother on the other side is competing. These things keep happening, and it's almost like the dualistic side is really challenging me, no matter what I do, no matter how I try to live a quiet, um,
yes.
non-confrontational, meditative life. It keeps
Mm.
throwing things at me that,
Well, really, you should take that as a compliment, really, because the, the dualistic realm tends to deliver invitations to conceal what is true. So it's because of your spiritual potential that the dualistic realm is trying to keep you energetically engaged in the dualistic realm. So
yes,
it's delivering invitations into those kind of experiences.
yes,
But but they can be dissolved quite easily because their invitation. So um, it isn't necessary to engage with them. So if there are challenging people, they're really only challenging if you engage with them. So
yeah,
you can, not really entertain that kind of energy. And with even with things like physical challenges, the thing to know is that you're the indestructible, timeless, infinite being within which all creations and time streams are appearing. So you don't need to be afraid of anything to do with the mental, emotional, and physical realms. And again, the dualistic realm is an inversion, so it conditions and educates everybody to be defending the physical realm as though it's really important, when really it's a bit of a joke realm. It's the end of the line. It isn't actually that important. And so we don't need to be too emotionally attached to it. Um, Paradoxically, when there is when there's the clarity in terms of aligning and functioning from effortless being, you have that option because you know very clearly what it is, and you can see that actually it's the simplest distinction is between impersonal being and the personal mode, because everything is remaining impersonal, really. It's only when you speak as though you are Susan. So the impersonal mode is like the actor, and then the character in the dualistic movie is Susan. And you can use, if you're with your husband or children or family members, they'll be speaking to you as though you are Susan, and then you just use the personal mode as you always have, and you speak to them. The areas where it can refine is that if you have challenging experiences, say within families, then you could revert more to impersonal being. So if there's a particular family member and they're either confrontational or challenging, then you don't need to engage with them energetically. You can just show up as impersonal being. You're showing up in your impersonal capacity rather than in your personal capacity. Whatever they throw at you won't hit you because there's nothing to hit. So it's a different game then, really.
Well, I've seen through my mindfulness practice again, which has been so invaluable, that they're not actually throwing things at me. I'm creating the suffering on my own by feeling their, and nobody's really, it's not, my present family isn't really aggressive or confrontational or anything like that, but um, I'm creating the suffering on my own by having my feelings hurt or feeling competitive. And I can see it's coming from me, and they're not forcing that on me. And I'm interpreting
Yeah,
it as,
it is. Well, as you've seen, and using the language, coming from me, what you see is that they're only issuing invitations because invitations they can come from all sorts of sources. So they can come from the mind, they can come from the emotions, they can come from family members, they can come by email, telephone call, an image on the TV, any source whatsoever, really. But they're all only invitations. But the thing to know is that they can only register if you're in the personal mode. So competition, for instance, is dualistic. So
yes,
if you're so to be competitive, you have to adopt the personal mode to be competitive.
yes,
Because if you're resting as the infinite impersonal being, you're the infinite field of awareness within which all the characters are arising. So it's like a play. And then there's Susan and, various characters on the stage with her. Um, when you know that you're the source of all of the action, you don't really need to be competitive. You can just watch it really.
yes.
But it's knowing that that is the dualistic realm is optional. The competition is optional. You can get into competition, but it requires a lot of energy because you're energizing the dualistic realm.
I was listening to your talk. I think it was with Jen this morning. She's American. And you were talking about your brother, because sometimes I think, well, where do I go from here? Right. Um, but I loved what you said about your brother and his wife just deciding to spend their days doing what makes them happy. That was so,
Yes.
that's,
Well, it's so opposite to the way we've been conditioned because we're all conditioned into activity, hard work, commitment, and we've been enslaved really.
yes.
But the option you have, especially being able to choose how you spend your days, um, really the most effective way to align with in-person effortless being is to make the days as joyful as possible because um, by doing that you're not really setting anything up, you're not investing energetically because the dualistic realm gets us to invest energetically in the physical realm. So it's always trying to get us cleaning, it's trying to get us going to the supermarket, to be getting in the garden and, all the different things to sustain everything on a physical level. But really, the most important aspect is to create that sense of effortlessness and timelessness. Then what you find is that the responsibilities we have, just to maintain the human realm of experience, they tend to be much more enjoyable and more balanced. So things like cleaning or gardening or, personal hygiene, whatever it is, all of those things, we're not seeing them in opposition to anything else. So we can enjoy doing the washing up as much as we can going to the theatre.
Mhm.
It's really with all of that through mindfulness, really. But it's that simple approach. But with with the understanding of the distinction between the dualistic realm and unity, you see that you can you can navigate the human experience intuitively simply by using the distinction between expansion and contraction, because anything which has a feeling of expansion is aligning with your infinite nature. And anything which is inviting you into a contracted experience, emotionally or mentally, um, you're empowering and energizing the dualistic realm.
And I know that when you're coming from the place of peace, that you get things done anyway that needs to be done. It's not,
Yes.
um,
It's much more efficient, actually, isn't it,
yes,
really?
yes. Yeah, I see the big key that I was missing before.
Well, as the dualistic realm likes to, um, it tends to try to keep you engaged with a version of oneself, which is a much lesser version. So it's really, as you recognized, that all of the power is in your infinite nature, and
Right.
that is fully available. And the dualistic realm is optional. And any experiences you have, any experiences of anxiety or any kind of contraction, they're all optional. And it's knowing that the more you invest in them, the more they're going to try to engage with you. So you'll be receiving more invitations. Whereas with declining the invitations, they will subside because firstly, you know that it isn't beneficial to your health and welfare to be entertaining those emotions. They have a knock-on effect through the koshas. So if we adopt the personal mode, and we're activated in the mental realm, and one of the biggest aspects in the mental realm is comparison. That's really how we're drawn um, into the mental realm. So it's either comparison. There could be comparison between one of the big invitations in the realm of time. This is the dualistic matrix. It has the component of time because it makes it seem as though we're losing things, we're losing people, we're losing experiences, and that gives an ongoing invitation into comparison. So we're comparing today to 10 years ago, or when our mum was alive, or when we were at school, or when we had this boyfriend, or whatever it was. Um,
Or other
so
people too, comparing to other people too.
exactly, yeah, exactly, that's another aspect,
A
isn't
big
it,
source
really?
of suffering.
Yeah. Well, it's and again, it's counterproductive because really, if you take let's take that one, say comparison with you, your ability to access or remain as impersonal, effortless, timeless being, um, the degree to which you can do that is still quite rare in this human realm. But the dualistic realm has tried to make it seem, well, it's used inversion to keep you preoccupied with experiences like comparison with others, and comparison in terms of things like income or class or those kind of things, to
Mm-hmm.
keep you engaged in the dualistic realm. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying, well, actually, I'm the infinite timeless being, I can't be anything other than that, and I can play in the dualistic realm on my terms. But instead of that, the dualistic realm is saying, well, actually, Susan, you're only a working class girl. You're not quite as good as some other people. You need to compete a little bit. But all of that is to keep you energetically engaged in the dualistic realm. And you don't need to prove anything because you're already the totality of existence,
Right,
which doesn't which doesn't need
right.
to compete.
Can you divert away from the invitations in different ways, like deciding to watch a happy movie or deciding to play with your pet, rather than just seeing the invitation and
Definitely, because it's
choosing to not engage it. I mean, for me,
yes,
I'm thinking, I could also just decide to play with my dog or watch a happy movie, or I don't. Um, there are ways I can
yes, definitely.
disengage.
Well, it's realizing that the dualistic realm is like a frequency game, and each of the koshas have seven fundamental frequencies. So if you take the physical body um, has seven energy points, the chakras. So the lowest one is the base chakra, which is red. And then they rise up. So they go red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and then violet is the crown chakra. But the same seven frequencies are available within both the mental, which is the astral, and the emotional and etheric realms. So, so for instance, if you take, well, take the mental realm first. So there is so things like preoccupation, thoughts to do with anxiety and fear. They're existing down in the lower frequency ones, so they'd be in the red zone. Whereas experiences which are to do with unity, um, you're having those experiences in the higher realms, and then you find that the thoughts are lighter, and then they generate much lighter emotional frequencies. So um, by watching happy movies, comedies, spending time with people where they're not particularly challenging, where you there's a natural level of a love and warmth with them. Um, if you take, for instance, the difference between a good marriage and a bad marriage. A good marriage is when you're with someone where they're not really delivering many invitations, and a bad marriage is one when they're delivering lots of invitations.
Right.
But they're only seen as good and bad when you don't understand what's going on, because when you see that they're actually only invitations, I mean, probably what you called a more difficult marriage was actually a fantastic opportunity because you learn to decline lots of invitations and not to be drawn into certain emotional experiences. But certainly on a daily basis, it's preferable to just have a sense of self-respect, equality with all of life, a sense of ease, lightness. Never feel hurried, never feel as though you need to be put under pressure. Um, creating your daily experience so it's balanced and easy. Staying rested is a good one as well, not overexerting, because the invitations tend to be turbocharged if we become more tired. And things like drinking alcohol and that kind of thing also turbocharge the invitations.
What does it do? What does drinking alcohol do?
Well, it makes the invitations, they're rapid fired to us. So instead of just, if we're feeling calm and rested, then we might have one or two invitations coming in intermittently. But if we overindulge in, say, alcohol or drugs, I don't see you partaking in that kind of thing really, Susan, uh, but they tend to turbocharge the invitation. So we tend to get them much more deeply and rapidly. So
Oh, that's
they're,
interesting. I didn't know that. So
mm,
somehow, okay.
it's
Well,
because
I
it's,
guess you're more vulnerable. Some,
yeah, the alcohol takes us down into the lower frequency
yeah,
ranges. So mentally, it tends to be, if we, maybe as a student, I remember, I haven't really, um, I've not really taken alcohol regularly since I was about 22 or 3. But I do remember, if you overindulge, the next morning you wake up and there are all kinds of thoughts running through the mind. They tend to be guilt, shame, embarrassment,
yeah,
kinds of things.
yeah.
but it's because it's chemically, well, it's activating those frequencies. So, keeping life quite simple, enjoying things in quite a simple way, and remaining rested and choosing experiences which are good, and just being open intuitively. Your intuition is an amazing gift, and it's been fully functioning all your life. It's just that there's been a little battle going on because the dualistic realm has been competing with that to try to divert your attention into things like competition or um, you know comparison in different ways, maybe.
Mhm. Oh, it's so interesting. I'll have to have another session with you at some point, and when I've processed all this and integrated it. And
Well, even that is an invitation, Susan, because the truth is,
I
you're the
already, yes,
timeless being, and you already know everything. It's
yes,
just the dualistic realm is saying, well, hang on, she's getting three of us here. What can we do? Invite her back in. We'll make it appear as though she needs to refer to someone else
yes,
to
yes,
understand this. When actually everything is already fully available.
yes.
But having said that, I'll be happy to speak with you again. But
Well, there were
it's
things that even though I have that knowing, there were things that I discovered in this discussion, and um, I think the most powerful one, and I can feel it, is that really it's a very powerful, solid, unbreakable essence that I am. And I don't need to be subjected to all the things that are thrown at me. Yeah,
No, it's comical in a way because you are unavoidably the indestructible, timeless, effortless, omnipotent being. That's all you can be, the totality of existence. But what the dualistic realm does, it tries to get us to adopt the personal mode. It gives us a list of problems or jobs that we need to overcome through spiritual practices, when really it's the personalization and the consenting to those personalized invitations that is the problem. And we don't really need to entertain them because we're remaining as the infinite timeless being. And it's the problem only arises when we adopt the personal mode, which we don't need to.
and I've let them by the invitations. I mean, I've let them convince me that I'm powerless over all the things they throw me, even though I've had this deep experiences. These deep
Yes,
experiences, they've let me think that they somehow have power over me.
yes. Well, it is ingenious. The dualistic realm is really ingenious because it's the symbolism of the all-seeing eye is that it's watching everything. It's watching this conversation, and
Yeah.
it's delivering invitations which are most likely to disturb or disrupt your ongoing, ever-present alignment with your true infinite nature.
Yeah. It's sad in a way that I let well, I wouldn't say let myself, but that happened, that I didn't see how powerful I was really. And
Just had a little excursion, Susan, because you're
yeah,
the infinite timeless being. Nothing is ever lost.
yeah.
It's just that in some way, because you are indestructible, invincible, omnipotent, you just had a little excursion from that for a little while. But it never really happened because you've remained in your timeless presence all along. It's just that you've had a little movie, The Life and Times of Susan.
It does seem very silly on a certain level. Amusing, yeah. Oh,
When you see it, like it's so convincing, really. But it's
yeah.
only because you're the infinite being, you needed a bit of a challenge. You know, it would have been too easy otherwise. When you when you can't be anything other than the infinite timeless being, you need a little bit of a challenge, really. And it's quite an ingenious little construct
Why is it
because
there? Why are we going through this? Do you know? Why do
well
we?
you can see it in many different ways. Ultimately, you can see it as like a movie, really, which is for cosmic entertainment. It's just really an experience of contrast to one's infinite nature.
Yeah.
Um, you can see it in terms of there's a sort of storyline unfolding because not only are there beings such as yourself where there's the knowing of one's true infinite nature, which is actually quite rare in many ways. You know, if you think of all the people you've met and known over your life, how many of them have known what you know, which is that you're the infinite field of awareness? And how many people could you have a conversation with about that?
Well, that's why I was so thrilled to see you, because even my favorite spiritual teachers, maybe Ajashanti could be someone, but I can't talk to him personally. But I, when I talk to them about these experiences, and these are evolved teachers, when I talk to them about these sudden, heightened, whatever, no mind, whatever you want to call them, which I know are authentic. Um, um, I'm not a crazy person, and I'm not especially imaginative person. I know they're authentic.
Hmm.
They don't quite. They know that there's no mind, and they know that there's that state. Um, but they don't really know how to talk about it very much, and that's why I was so excited to find you. And they
Good.
certainly don't know how to tell you to keep your awareness there.
Hmm. Hmm.
As far as I know, maybe more sophisticated Buddhist practices do that, which I haven't done. But yeah, they're a little bit befuddled, I guess is the word, when I tell them what's happened to me. They don't know quite to what to. They believe me and they know that these things happen, but they don't quite know what to do with it.
Well, lots of beings have experienced impersonal, effortless awareness, but there is a structure within consciousness which is explained quite comprehensively using the model of the koshas, and so you can begin to demonstrate how the first two koshas remain in alignment with the infinite being, and then the three remaining ones are actually in service to the dualistic realm. So you can draw a line between remaining as the infinite being or voluntarily activating and experiencing in the dualistic realm. But without the understanding of those structures, it doesn't really make sense, you know, because well, it tends to be that well, as you've experienced, things can just happen without really understanding why. You can see actually the that really what was happening is that because you're familiar with impersonal effortless being and that you brought that in with you, your natural alignment is with the infinite being. And so when you found yourself in certain circumstances, they tended to be more expansive circumstances or being with people where there was a feeling of expansiveness. So, so it was relatively easy for the dualistic realm to be turned off. And when the dualistic realm is turned off, what is naturally there is infinite impersonal being. And so it seemed to be an experience when really it's what's there all along. But the thing in common really with your experiences is that the the move from identification with the mind, emotions, and the physical body, um, the identification with those subsided, which is why those experiences arose. But it's because the potential to have those experiences has been there all along.
And it seemed like the universe was telling me, it was so clear because the universe was saying, no, there's nothing you need to do. There's no guru you need to
Yes,
follow. There's no practice you need to discipline yourself into every day.
yes,
Although I'll still love meditation, but because every time was with a different, like it was the Aboriginals, and then it was the Dalai Lama, and then it was in with my favorite, I guess you'd call them non-dual insight teachers retreat, and then so, and then it was TM, and then so, I was really getting the message that there's nothing, no practice, no teacher, anything that I need to adhere to, because those awakenings happened always, never in the same place twice, ever, or with the same teacher.
yes. Well, it's because you were carrying that ability, just to remain in one's true nature wherever you went. And it's just that the world generally is inviting us into the invitations. The experiences you had where the invitations fell away and there was effortless timeless being is where the experiences didn't really contain the potential for the invitations being delivered. So it's a shorter step, really. The dualistic realm can be turned off more effectively when you're with the Dalai Lama or Adyashanti or with your dog or in the Australian outback than being in the center of Los Angeles, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
But but then gradually you realize that everything is available to you and unity consciousness is available. What I'd like to do for a moment, Susan, is just to have a look to see what unity consciousness is, because unity consciousness is something you're fully familiar with. And it's just that if we have a look at it, it's something that'll be an option that you can exercise whenever you wish to. So in the
Is that a kosha, or is that a unity consciousness? Is that a
while unity consciousness is an option within it, which is within the body of wisdom or within effortless being, and then it can also give heightened experiences, so it can take you into the body of bliss as well.
okay?
So it is experiential. So knowing your true nature or realization is non-experiential. That's really just been a mistaken identity. So all along you have been the infinite timeless being, but everything in this world has tried to convince you, oh no, you're Susan. You have this story, you have these experiences, you've had some traumatic experiences. So anxiety and fear and anger are perfectly reasonable. So that's just the personal mode, really. But with unity consciousness is available at will, actually, because it's ever present. Because there is unity consciousness, um, which precedes the personal mode. So if we just take this moment, so the personal mode would be that you're Susan, you're sat on your sofa there, and you're having a conversation with this other person called David Bingham. But if you experience as unity, what you see is that actually there's simply an open space of effortless being and awareness, which is it's all knowing, it's knowing everything. So it's aware of the weight of the body on the sofa. It's aware of the light coming through the window. It's aware of the two voices. It's aware of any sounds or thoughts or sensations. So you're always resting as this infinite ocean of awareness. And then there are thoughts. perceptions, experiences emerging, but they're all arising equally and effortlessly. So there could be the sound of Susan speaking, and there's infinite impersonal effortless awareness of the sound of Susan's voice. And that's a wave on the ocean of unity. And then there's the sound of David's voice, which is a wave on the same ocean of unity. And then there could be awareness of an object in the room or awareness of an emotion. So, whatever is arising effortlessly in this moment, so just notice the forms arising. So, there's effortless awareness of the body sitting on the seat, effortless awareness of the hands on the floor, of the feet on the floor, of the hands on the lap, or um, effortless awareness of the texture of the clothing, effortless awareness of the light, effortless awareness of the any sounds appearing. So all those forms are just arising effortlessly within the infinite field of effortless being you've always been. And it's unity consciousness when those forms are experienced in neutrality and impersonally. So you're not adopting the personal mode. You're not saying, well, actually, I'm Susan, I'm sitting on my sofa. This is my house. I live here, and all of those personalized thoughts. When the personal mode is turned off, there is naturally just unity consciousness. So it's something which you can choose to experience, because you could say there's impersonal effortless awareness of an invitation into anxiety. So even an invitation into anxiety can arise within unity consciousness. It's just that you don't experience it personally and you don't energize it. But unity consciousness is it's actually the most energetically economical experience, and it returns the mental, emotional, and physical realms to balance, because because the energetic expenditure in the mental realm is withdrawn, and then as a result of the mental realm becoming quiet, then the emotions become quiet, and then the physical realm returns to balance as well.
Yeah, I feel that.
Fantastic. The dualistic realm has been intent on getting you to underestimate your true status and potential by getting you to focus on the personalized content of the human experience.
Bad, dualistic,
Funny, really.
relentless dualistic invitations. Oh, yes, I see. I mean, it's wonderful. I see. I have a different view of it now. Thank God. I feel tremendous sense of relief, release, and relief. That I don't feel like I'm grappling. I guess grappling is the right word with it so much anymore. Like I have it, I don't have it. Why did I have it? Why don't I have it? Will I have it again? All that. It's all I know it's all I really want, because once you have it, nothing else can affect you. So um I'm clear on that. But then I would go through, I have it, I don't have it. I may never have it again because I never know when it's going to happen. There's nothing obviously I can do consistently to make it happen, because no, nothing ever happens twice in the same way. So it's to be released from that is wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much, David.
Great. Well, also, with the clarity available, I'm sure, well, you already have your group and you'll be able to share with your group and
Yeah.
see where
Yeah.
that goes. Because um, an aspect of clarity seems to be that we do get called on sometimes to assist others.
Do you have groups? Do you do groups?
Well, I've started doing online groups. We've only done three so far, but we do one a month. But we begin with a unity consciousness meditation because I like the idea of lots of people tuning in to unity consciousness together. That's very powerful. And then there's usually a topic. So the previous topic was effortless being. The one this it's the next meeting is this coming Sunday. Um, it's they're held at 7 p.m. UK time, which would be 11 a.m. your time. The theme actually this week is utilizing the koshas in a conscious way. So it's learning to navigate the koshas and how to remain as effortless, timeless being and how to utilize the dualistic realm in a selective way.
Oh, I'd like to know about that. Do I just join through your website somehow?
Yeah, I have a website which is davidbingham.org, and there's an events page there, and so you can join on that web page.
Yeah,
So it's really to well, I love the idea of many people experiencing unity consciousness together,
I do
and
too.
um, having the opportunity to explore different topics like how to function primarily from effortless being, declining the invitations, utilizing the koshas, um, and then there's some people submit questions which they do prior to the meetings. And Angela, one of the ladies who helps, um, she she puts some of the questions, and then we have a sort of open session for about maybe 45 minutes where people can just ask any question at all. But the most important really is experiencing unity consciousness because the questions can um, perpetuate the mental realm, really.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
can be
And I'm real
beneficial.
good at going there to the mental realm.
Yeah.
So the unity consciousness is basically looking around with effortless being. Is that right? Basically, is that what it is? Looking at looking at your
Yes.
environment or what's around you with
Yes.
a view of effortless being. Is that right?
Yes. Effortless being is what you are.
Yes.
So from effortless being, there's just an innocent noticing of the forms appearing. So whatever the forms are appearing in the moment, they're experienced as a unified field rather than in the subject object mode because we've been conditioned to function as though we're a human being, so we're experiencing life in a dualistic context. It's the idea that we're here and then there's the world outside, but in unity it's it's neutrality and equality, and it's impersonal, so whatever's appearing, so one moment a thought could appear which in the dualistic mode would be experienced personally, but that's just a wave which is just arising on the impersonal ocean. And then there could be the sound of a car going by, and that would be experienced in a dualistic context as having nothing to do with the person. But in unity consciousness, the arising of the thought and the sound of the car going by are both waves on the infinite, impersonal, neutral, effortless field of awareness which you've always been. So whatever the form is it's only arising as a wave on the impersonal ocean of awareness and beingness.
So
So,
are you practicing in a way, viewing, it's like practicing on relatively neutral things usually, um, as a way of viewing the invitations the same way? Is that the same?
well, that can be done, but practices tend to invite us back into effort
Right.
because
So
the
practice
distinction
wasn't the right word. It was, yeah.
it can just be a noticing really, where
Okay.
there's the noticing of the difference between forms appearing effortlessly or there being invitations into either personalization or effort.
Okay. Okay. Well, definitely sign up for your group.
Great, lovely to have you along. That would be really nice.
Yeah. I'd like to stay connected. I feel like I finally have someone I can talk to about all this. It's hard.
Well, it's quite a lonely experience.
Yeah.
One of the really nice things which has emerged from the group meetings is a lady called Fern. There's a conversation on my YouTube channel with Fern, but she started a WhatsApp group, so um, it just enables everyone to be in contact with others. So if you want to have a conversation with somebody, if there's a person you resonate with, then you can set it up and have a conversation with them.
Okay.
But the group meetings are good, and I think there's a chat which is running on the group meeting, so people can meet in that way as well. But you don't need anybody.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, I kind of do know that. There can be very much a loner and happily so. Uh, and I definitely was never looking, I was never looking to be a teacher or someone important. And I was definitely never looking. I mean, I would look to people for more information and guidance, but I was never looking to be a devotee of anyone ever. That never
No,
entered my
that's your
mind.
yeah. Well, that's a saving grace, really. It's just
Yeah,
saved a huge amount of seeking.
because I can imagine that really takes you off the path.
Hmm. Yeah, it's in taking us into the dualistic realm.
Yeah, and gives up the power that you have, naturally.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good you brought that knowledge in with you into this experience.
Yeah. Thank you so
Oh,
much, David.